All right, guys. Hope you all had a great weekend and a great week last week. Interesting week, obviously. So I'm just gonna get right into it so we don't waste any time at all. So hopping into SPY right away. You can see that last week we had one of the best weeks in the last year, I think since April, I believe. So we had a gain of about 8.5% last week on SPY. Pull up the yearly chart. You can see if we pull this line back, actually pull up the weekly chart on the yearly. You can see that if you pull back this line across any time frame over the past year, pretty much, there haven't been that many big pop weeks aside from back in, I think it was April over here when we had right over here. So in early March and also in April 4th or April 6th week, right? So massive gains on Biden winning the presidency, and obviously Trump is still contesting that. That might go on for a while. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I mean, it's 2020. It would not surprise me if anything else happens that's out of the ordinary. But we need to go with the information we have at hand. So as I speak right now, futures are up on the Nasdaq about 1.9%, on S&P 1.45%. So super bullish right now, and I think it's going to keep going up. I mean, I don't see a reason for us to drop down. It seems like people are happy with the result of Biden being nominated president elect, and I think that he has a lot of initiatives that may be interesting for certain segments. For example, like alternative energy, like First Solar is one stock that I want to look at with you guys. One sec, so First Solar. Make sure I'm sharing screen as well. Yep. So First Solar had a big pullback initially last week, down to around 78. I'll pull up the 3-month chart, daily candle. So you can see that had a nice big pullback from about 97.50 down to a low of 77.50. It was down about 21% from that low. And then last week, in the last 2 days on Thursday and Friday, it recovered about 16.5%. So it actually tapped 90 and it closed at 88.27, right? So that's pretty bullish overall. If you look at First Solar's long-term chart, all-time chart actually, you can see that at one point it traded at 330 a share way back when. I remember trading it in this area like about 12 years ago or so. And I don't discount the possibility that it goes back up to 150, $200 a share again, right? So if the U.S. pivots to a clean energy model, that could mean enormous spending on companies like these, right? So solar panels from First Solar, or you have SolarEdge, for example, as well, SEDG, right? They had a big pullback as well, you can see, and then they recovered a fair bit last week too. So they pulled the 3-month chart again. You can see we had a huge decline over a course of a few weeks, about 41%, obviously after a huge rally, right? So it was up about 74% in like 3 weeks or so. Fell 41% off that high in about 2 weeks or so, and it's already recovered now about 26%, right? So clean energy, I think, is a nice play to look at because it makes sense from a bipartisan standpoint to focus on clean energy. Like, why wouldn't you? Whether you're Democratic or Republican doesn't matter. We want clean energy, and we want to obviously combat global warming. So I think this might be a good opportunity to go long on some clean energy stocks like, First Solar, SolarEdge, or even the TAN ETF if you want. And again, these have options available on them. So you can sell cash secured puts if you want to get a better entry, for example. Not a bad idea there. Also last week, weed stocks popped off on Friday after numerous states agreed to legalize weed. So that's interesting too. Again, I'm kind of split on that topic overall. I like CGC overall just because they have a better balance sheet overall. And they also have an ownership stake from Constellation Brands, right? So Constellation Brands, which is the owner of Corona Beers and numerous other companies as well, they actually own a stake in CGC as well. And I forget who it was that mentioned to me that there's some kind of optionable bonds or something like that on CGC from Constellation. But that was an interesting point that someone pointed out to me about an hour ago. I didn't read the whole response that they sent to me, but I'll look into that more and I'll maybe fill you guys in if I find anything interesting there. Either way, You can see that over the past roughly 3 months or a month and a half or so, it's up from 14 to about 24. And it's possible that these get some momentum again, like ACB as well. They get some momentum and they pop up. Again, I'm not a big fan of these companies longer term, just because I think that it's a very oversaturated market, and I'm not sure how well they'll do individually, right? So keep an eye on them. Might be good trading, but longer term, be cautious. Don't risk what you can't afford to lose. Also, Virgin Galactic reported last week. They announced that their space flight will be, I think, on the window of November 18th to the 21st, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And that will be the time you're going to see the stock run up until. So we're only November 9th tomorrow. I think you're going to see us run pretty handedly into that launch window. So November 18th approximately. So you have about 10 days or so until that window starts. And if you go by the past, which was the past roughly month or so, we ran up from a low of, I think it was around 1486 over here. We ran up into the first launch window, which was in early, so it was mid-October, I believe, and ran up to a high of 2450, right? After that event didn't occur right away, stock price pulled back again, and now it might rally up back to, I think, around the 24 area prior to that launch date. And then after they have that launch, assuming it's successful, they'll get their FAA approval, followed by Richard Branson going to space around January timeframe, right? And then they also announced that each spaceport should be able to generate about $1 billion in revenues per year, which is interesting, right? So if they start building numerous spaceports all over the planet, then that could be, multi-billions in revenues, right? Again, it's still very speculative, very early stages overall. They don't have any actual customers that have actually used the product yet. So it is huge speculation, but at the same time, I don't mind tossing a few percentage of my portfolio at it, and if it pops up to $100 or $200, that's a great win, right? Same thing could have been said of Tesla back when Tesla was trading for peanuts, and no one saw the future at all, right? Same idea. So keep an eye on that too. Also, let me pull this off one sec. So also I was going to talk about, Palantir, right? So Palantir popped on Friday. Big move to the upside. If I pull up one sec, 1 month chart, you can see that we had a huge move on Thursday and Friday, actually, on pretty heavy volume. Friday, we traded over 75 million shares, and it had to move up to almost 15. So they report earnings, I believe, this week. It's November 12th, after market close. So that's on, Tomorrow's the 9th. So Thursday, after market close, right? So the current EM and PM, I'm not sure if Frankie put these in that document. Let me pull it up one sec. So for Palantir, no, it's not there. So I'll just price it out myself right now. One sec. So for Palantir, the expected move for Friday is current price 14. About $2.70 in one direction from the current price. So upside would be 1670, downside would be around 1130. And then the potential move would be approximately $1 wider on each side. So 1770 upside, downside 1030 or so, right? So a pretty wide range of values on Palantir for the week. And I just lost my chart, so let me just find it again one sec. Yeah, here it is. So again, way up here above the chart parameters over here, upside, downside would be around here, right? And what's interesting about this is that with Biden winning, the Democrats, the founders of Palantir are very anti-Trump and also very democratic, it seems, right? From their perspective, they were opposing a lot of Trump's initiatives, and they were very vocal about it as well. So it's probable we see some new contracts added to Palantir by the new regime. And if that transpires, obviously you can get some serious upside on here, right? I kind of think back to PayPal, back when PayPal was valued much lower. And you can see PayPal's chart. They kind of puttered around for a while before they took off where they are today. But if you pull up the chart and see on the 5-year, you can see that at one point in time they were trading for like $33 or so, and it was for a while actually. I think it was more than that. So you can see, so they were at about $30 for a few years, and then they started taking off really, really hard, right? I just mentioned PayPal because the commonality between Palantir and PayPal is that they're both founded by Peter Thiel, right? So interesting to note there. I also wanted to talk about, I think it was Rocket Mortgages, I believe. One sec. They report earnings this week too, and Rocket has, one sec. So if I pull up the EM and PM sheet, thank you very much for Frankie again for doing this. We have a few earning reports here. I'll go over Rocket in a sec, but you have Applied Materials. The PM is 456 or 6.5%, upside 75.07, downside 65.95. Beyond Meat has a PM of $26 in one direction or 16.5%, upside 183.04, downside 131.02. DraftKings also, so numerous states also approved of online sports betting as well, which caused DraftKings to pop off last week too. I'll pull up their chart so you can just get a glimpse at it as well. DKNG. And here was the 3-month chart. So you can see over here, we had a nice pop up off that bottom, that 35 support area, right? And if it carries forward, I can see a push toward around 50-ish by end of the year. And obviously you want to trade very, very, very cautiously because with earnings, this can have wild swings. So the current potential move is $6.15 in either direction for the week. That's 14.5%. Upside is 48.47, and the downside is 36.17. Next, we have Lyft, which also had positive news along with Uber last week, with California passing that. I forget the exact initiative, but it allowed the drivers to remain independent contractors, which is favorable for Lyft and Uber. Either way, both stocks had nice big lift last week. Pardon my pun. You saw the move right here from it was 24.86 all the way up to high of 32, came back down, and then it closed near $30 on Friday, right? So that was Lyft, and Uber had a similar move, right? So a nice big push to the upside. So Lyft reports this week, and they have a potential move of 385 in either direction, or 13%, upside 33.69, downside 26 roughly. You also have Norwegian Cruise Lines as well. They report this week too. Their PM is $1.86 or 11%, upside 18.83, downside 15.11. Nikola Motors as well. Again, super speculative. I'm not a big fan of Nikola whatsoever. PM is $3.88, 19.8% move either direction. Upside 23.44 for the week, downside 15.68. Again, these cheaper stocks make for great cash secured puts because the margin required to sell cash secured puts is so low, given that they're a lower stock price. So not a terrible idea to go way out of the money and sell cash secured put, assuming you don't mind owning the stock, right? So, for example, if I pull up Nikola Motors, and again, I'm not a fan of them really, but if I pull up their chart, I mean, they're one sec, so you can see over here, Nikola Motors, right? So you can see their weekly option chain. For example, the $16 put options would go for around 40 cents, right? So basically, in a worst case scenario, them win is zero. You have to put up $1,600 on collateral to make $40. It doesn't seem like great risk reward overall, but keep in mind that it would require a massive move to the downside to hit $16. Again, I think it's within the actual range because the range of the week is upside again 23.44, downside 15.68. So it is within that range. But if you want a little bit less credit, you can even go like $15 strike or $14 strike. But at this point, you kind of get such diminished returns that it doesn't make sense to really take too much risk for $15 in your pocket per contract, right? I wouldn't really go for that at all, right? Alternatively, you can use spreads if you want to use spreads, like put spread, for example, 16-14 put spread. Again, the return isn't that great for the risk involved. I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that cheaper stocks, such as Nikola, for example, or Palantir, require lower margin because they are already so cheap, right? So Palantir, for example, if you go out, even to the 12 strike for Friday, you get 40 cents. So if you wanted to buy Palantir stock, for example, instead of buying the stock outright, you could just sell, one put option, collect $40. If it stays above 12 bucks by Friday, you make 40 bucks in your pocket. Not a lot of money, whatever, but extrapolate that times 10 or 100 or whatever, and you have a lot more premium in your pocket. Downside, obviously, would be to owning the stock at 12 minus 40 cents or 11.60, right? Keep that in mind too. And again, these are newer stocks. They're IPO stocks, so they're more volatile. So just be aware of that as well, right? And last but not least was Rocket Mortgages, right? So, Rocket Lending, right? So Rocket, they have a potential move for the week of 367 or 17%. Upside is 25 roughly. Downside is 1764. And again, they have a lot of premium in the option chain on the weekly. So going out, if you want to own the stock, for example, somewhere around the support levels. So if I pull up the chart, I'll show you guys right now. You can see support is around 18, right? If I draw across the spectrum, you can see that 18 is roughly where it touched twice. So right over here, as well as over here around 1831, low over here low of 1778. So if you went to the option chain and you did a cash secured put on Rocket and you sold, for example, the 19 strike, you can get 40 cents. Again, you have 40 bucks returned for risk of $1,900. Not really great overall. But this would be a case where you don't mind owning the stock, right? And looking at the valuation of it, for example, if I go to RKT, you can see what I see a little bit. Current market cap, 42 billion. Net income, which is profit right now, is almost 5 billion. Price earnings ratio, 8.8. Current sales, 10 billion, right? And they also actually added a new feature to Finviz now, so you can see their balance sheet as well at a glimpse. So you can see the past 12 months, or the 12 months of 2018, they did about 4.3 billion in revs. Last year, they did 5.25 billion in revs. And I believe this year they're on pace for, I think it's around 7 billion, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, just some ideas for the week on how to trade certain names. Again, obviously, do your own research. Don't take what I say, too seriously. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm often wrong as well, right? And make your own decisions, right? So those are the big ones I'm looking at this week, really. Also, Square and Alibaba are the last two I was looking at too. So looking at Square, they had a huge move last week as well. They pushed to the downside with PayPal's earning report, which was good. You can see over here. So Square initially sold off with PayPal on Tuesday. They hit a low of around 150, 110, and they rocketed up the rest of the week, right? So they moved from 150, 110, and they closed right near $200, right? So a nice big move to a new all-time high. Chart is super, super bullish. Their revenue year over year was up, I believe it was 90% or 91%, if I'm not mistaken. And their Bitcoin investments are paying off as well, right? So keep that in mind too. I'm very bullish on Square now. It seems like Square and PayPal have the online payments market kind of cornered right now, and the Cash App is killing it in the US right now. So keep an eye on them. I'm super, super bullish on them as well. And then Alibaba, last but not least, they initially sold off after their earning report on Thursday. They hit a low of 280, and they popped back up to around 300 on Friday, right? So that was a nice move to the upside again on Friday. I do expect more upside ahead, especially as it's probable that Biden will be more lenient on China than Trump was, and obviously not be so aggressive in the trade war stance, so to speak, right? So some ideas on trading, Biden's presidency, clean energy for one, wheat stocks perhaps as well, obviously, and then looking at Lyft and Uber, given California legislation that passed, or that was voted upon anyway, and then obviously China stocks or emerging market stocks in Asia as well, right? So those are the prime ones that I'm looking at. Yeah, and then the ERs for the week. Let me just pull them up so you can see what else there is, and then we can go with Q&A, guys. One sec. So ERs for the week. So we have Beyond Meat, Novavax, tomorrow, Workhorse actually before open. You can't really play that, obviously. McDonald's before open, Aurora Cannabis before open, SPG, which is one of my favorite positions right now. They're obviously beaten down, but still paying a good dividend and nice covered calls as well. They report tomorrow morning as well. After hours, Beyond Meat, Novavax, Tilray, Nikola Motors, Norwegian Cruise Lines. Tuesday, you have Advanced Auto Parts, CyberArk, which I also love, CYBR. They're a phenomenal company as well out of Israel. Keep an eye on them too. Corsair Computer Parts as well. Rocket Companies after close, which I already discussed. Actually, Datadog as well, DDOG. That'll be interesting to watch too, given that the polarity of outcomes for cloud service providers last week. So you had Alteryx last week fell on earnings, and Cloudflare actually rose to a new all-time high on earnings as well, right? So very polarizing overall. I haven't really followed Datadog too closely, but I know that some of you guys do. Lyft after hours on Tuesday as well, Tencent after hours on Tuesday. On Wednesday, before market open, you have Lemonade Insurance. After hours, you have, that's pretty much it, I guess. Purple's kind of a moment name as well. Before open on Thursday, you have Wix, which is a competitor to Shopify. If Shopify's earning reports any indicator on how they'll do, they'll probably kill it as well. So keep an eye on Wix. I believe the symbol is WYX as well. And then you have after hours Cisco, which is a bigger company, obviously, and you have Applied Materials, Walt Disney reporting this week too, Palantir, which I mentioned already as well. and then on Friday before open, you have DraftKings, and that's pretty much it. So we'll go with Q&A now, guys. Any questions at all? Anyone?
Can you touch up on the solar stock again?
Yeah, sure. You mean First Solar, or you mean the tiny ETF?
No, and you said like Joe Biden stock market is liking Joe Biden, and you said that there was a lot of good solar stocks to look at. I remember you mentioning two, but I missed them. I was
renewable energy stocks are going to do well because of Biden.
Yeah, that's right. So there's First Solar, which is right over here on this chart, and then there's also SolarEdge as well, right? SEDG. There's also a Chinese one as well. I think it's called like Ginkgo Solar or something like that. I think it's is it Ginkgo Solar? One second, let me find it. Ginkgo. Is it Ginkgo Solar? Yeah, it's JKS as well, actually. Yeah, so that one too, JKS. I just prefer First Solar and SolarEdge because they're both American, right? So this is JKS. You have SEDG, and you also have First Solar as well, right? And then if you want to play the broad spectrum renewable energy, you go to TAN, right? That's the renewable energy ETF, right? And it's done actually incredibly well this year. It's actually the solar ETF, not renewable energy, right? But looking at like First Solar, for example, you can just see some of their numbers, right? So over the past few years, 2018, they did 2.24 billion in revs. 2019, 3.06 billion in revs. And then for the past 12 months, they've done 3.5 billion in revs already, right? So, and looking at the profit as well, they've gone from 3.92 billion, million. So 392 million in 2018 to 549 million in 2019 to 854 million in 2020, right? So the revenues are going pretty fast again, right? That means that there's a lot of investment in solar. And it's probably going to see further and further investment as well. I think that they're a good longer term play.
Well, Tesla is moving solar too, aren't they?
Tesla, they are. I mean, they purchased Solar City, but they're more of an implementer than a creator than anything, right? But
I read something that over the long term he wants to do like entire homes, like build entire solar homes.